want to start off this video with a disclaimer. I'm just sharing my own personal experience. I'm not speaking for anyone but myself. You can take everything I say with a huge grain of salt. You can write me off, you can call me names, whatever. I don't care. I've got no skin in the game anymore. I'm just trying to provide you my honest experiences, so maybe someone will find this useful who is kind of on the fence if they should quit or not, or about getting into the sport, about getting out of the sport, whatever. I just thought this information might be useful, and I'm not hearing a lot of people talk about it. Also, I have no beefs with anybody in the paramotoring community. I'm not against you getting lessons. I'm not against you self-teaching. I'm not against you buying Ozone or APCO or any of these other brands, or Bruce, whatever his Bruce Designs. I don't know. Like, I'm not promoting any products. Like, none of that stuff. I'm just sharing with you my experiences. So I think everyone's all good people. They got good stuff going on. It's still a beautiful sport. I'm still attracted to it, and this is so no hard feelings toward anyone or anything. And there. So okay. So I just kind of want to jump into this. First of all, my experience. I just want to talk about how I got into the sport first. I was out in Jackson Hole doing some hiking in the Grand Tetons, and I was down at the grocery store, and I looked up and I saw two hang gliders off the top of this mountain that was right by the grocery store in downtown Jackson, just kind of hanging there. I'm sorry, there were two paragliders, and they were just like going back and forth, and I was just mesmerized. I was like, holy crap, man, that looks awesome. Like, I want to do that. I got to do that, right? And like, my reaction there was the same reaction that I had when I first saw kite surfing. I was like, oh my gosh, yes. Like, you just know, and like, yes, I'm doing it. That's awesome. I want that, right? That's exactly how I felt. And eventually I ended up going out to Utah, and I got my P2 free flying certificate license thing with Utah Paragliding. Jonathan, I want to say Jeffries, I forget his last name. And I had a great experience. He's awesome, super nice guy, reasonable. It was just great. So, and I learned how to fly at Point of the Mountain. And in Utah in the morning on the south side, you get these nice, smooth, gentle winds. So you're basically ridge soaring, and then in the afternoon you can go over to the north side because the wind changes direction, and you can go up and get much higher and stuff. So that's where I learned. And then after I did that, I came back here. And of course, in Wisconsin, we have no mountains, so, what are you going to do? You're either going to get towed up into the air by like a winch, or else you're going to have to buy a paramotor. Well, I ended up buying a paramotor, and honestly, at the time, I thought it was a bit of a compromise, because you got this, at minimum, 42-pound thing on your back, plus you put gas in, and you got this spinning propeller behind you that's loud, that vibrates, and you're like, I swear, like I'm always smelling gas when I'm up there or turning or something, and it gets hot, and just, you miss the purity of just having your harness and your wing, and just that silence and calmness and serenity and beauty and efficiency. Like, that kind of goes out the window a little bit when you got this motor on your back. I feel like, I don't know if you guys ever seen the movie Waterworld. You got Kevin Costner on his catamaran, right, just cranking, ripping along, so beautiful and peaceful. Then you got this group called the Smokers. They're like jet skis and power boats and oil and smoking cigarettes and all the smoke and stuff, right? Maybe that comparison is not quite fair, but I do think that you make a compromise when you have the motor on your back. So anyway, I ended up buying a motor, and took just a couple really small lessons with some people in the area, and then ended up getting up into the air. Now, I was living in Chicago, okay, and I guess my first big reason that kind of led me to sell my equipment was convenience. Okay, now this is such an, I guess this is ironic, right? because you go outside, you look up, and you see this huge, beautiful sky. You're like, wow, look at all that. You go up there and you see the stars, or you see these beautiful cumulus clouds, or all these just, you're like, wow, like this just looks gorgeous, right? And you're like, wow, I mean, I can literally go up there and fly around up in the sky. How awesome is that? Unbelievable. Awesome. Some of my best flights are when I got up close to the clouds, I was like, this is stinking awesome. Okay? So I'm living in Chicago, and in order for me to fly, it's kind of ironic because you got this beautiful big sky, but you're in a city, right? So I was living in an apartment at the time, and I had my motor sitting in my kitchen, even though it had gas in it and stuff. It was still sitting in the kitchen. I took really good care of it, right? I'd have to leave my apartment, go get my car, bring it back, park it in front of my place. Then I'd have to bring down my cargo carrier, put that thing on. Then I'd go ahead, bring down my motor, put that on. Then go get my wing, kept my wing inside too. Bring that down, put that in the car. Then go get all my stuff, put that in the car. Then I had to drive to my flying site. At that time, I flew out of like Fort Sheridan, which was, I think, an illegal spot to fly from. That was like, I don't know, let's say 30 minutes away. Get there, park, put my stuff over there, set up my wing, go back, put on all my gear, and then hope that no one's around, and then quick get off the ground, fly for half hour to an hour, come back, land, pack it all up, put it back in the car, drive home, and there's often traffic, right? And then put everything back, and it was just not super convenient. And like, guys, I know what you're saying. Like before I got into the sport, I like to be driving around the country. I'd be like, oh look, there's a beautiful field, like perfect grass, like a nice sloping topography, some beautiful trees, maybe a little creek. I was like, oh man, I gotta fly over there, check that out, blah blah blah, right? Like, you can't do that, guys. It's all private land. People own it. There aren't no trespassing signs there that are visible, but if you've asked people, they don't want you on their property, right? You got to ask for permission, right? And on top of that, like, you can't fly in congested areas, or people will complain if you're too loud, blah, 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 right? So in most of the videos that you're probably watching online about people paramotoring, like, they're out in the country, right? They're not flying over cities or in suburbs and stuff, right? They're out away from everybody, right? Because people don't like dealing with the noise and stuff, and they don't, and there's just nowhere to launch from. So for me, in my situation, living in Chicago, I had to drive up to some park, or like some state park, or I don't even know what this place was, right? And I really don't even think I was supposed to launch there, but it's just not super convenient, right? And it's ironic because you look around, we see all this open land all over the place, all these spots to launch. But it's private property and you can't actually launch from there, right? It's like someone dangling candy right in front of your face, but you can't eat it, right? It's like, man, this like totally stinks. You got to go to a special place where you can launch and land from. So before you get into it, I would encourage you to investigate, where exactly can I launch from? Drive there, check it out, make sure it's okay. Or do you got to go to an airport? Or, is there some private individual who owns land who will let you launch from that spot, or a certain park or whatever? But make sure you get the clearances and know ahead of time, because you might be driving for a long way, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm busy. I got plenty of stuff to fill my time with, and taking 45 minutes, an hour just to go there, set up, and then to come back, it's like, man, it's like half of a day or something, or 3 or 4 hours just to have like less than an hour flight. So this is branch off this idea of convenience. A lot of places that you might want to fly, it's actually not legal to fly there. And so what I would do is, like, I'd go online, I'd be on Google Map, I'd be looking around, oh, like, here's a park, and I'd like go and find this little corner of the park. It looked like it was mowed and like out in the middle of nowhere, and I'll be like, perfect, I'll just go and fly there, right? And like, no one will bother me, and I don't think it's like technically legal to fly there, but there's not like explicit rules saying that you can't fly there. So I was like, I'll just go there quick, and I'll set up, and then I'll launch and get out of there, right, before people notice me. But whenever I do that, like when I'm setting up, people are like coming out of the ground with cameras and stuff, like taking pictures and waiting around to see what I'm doing, and you're like attracting attention to yourself, right? And that makes me nervous, because if the cops came, they'd probably be like, yo, like, you can't do that thing here. This is like a public park. You need to go to an airport or a private land or blah, 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 right? So it makes me a little, I don't know, nervous or something when you go to these places that you're not technically supposed to be at, I think, but no one has said it explicitly, and you're setting up to launch and stuff, and it just attracts all this attention to you, and it's not soothing or stress-free. It's like, oh, quick, I gotta set up my crap, get off the ground here, and then be on my way before I, cause more of a scene. Okay, so next point I want to talk about is just like my general enjoyment. I come from a kite surfing and windsurfing background, and I found those sports to be much more athletic or engaging than paramotoring. For me, paramotoring, like the most difficult part is like probably launching. Landing is a breeze. So, and I just don't think it's a super athletic sport. So once you get up in the air and you're just kind of cruising around, for me, I would get bored. Granted, the only things I were doing is I like do some foot drags. I might do like some hard banking turns or something, but I was not like into acro stuff, and I was not doing any wing overs or spirals or 360s, any of that stuff, because it would make me nauseous. And a couple times out in Utah, I actually got sick to my stomach up in the air, which is nasty. And it was a really crappy feeling. And it was too bad. Like, I wish I didn't get airsick, but I kept getting airsick, and I never actually got over that. So anyway, I would get bored up in the air, and especially like when you're cruising high, it would get cold, it'd be boring, and I'm like, I didn't have a headset on, like to listen to music, or I didn't have like one of those radio things to talk with friends. I'd be flying by myself often. It's not like every kid in the block's got a paramotor, right? Like, this is like a very small percentage of people have one of these. So anyway, it got boring, and flying up high, like sometimes it just feels like you're standing still. So and then I guess sometimes I would go and fly because I'd feel like, shoot, I got this, $6,000 paramotor plus, $3,500 wing. It's like, I got this big investment that I made. I don't just want to let it sit there. It's a beautiful night. And I felt like I should go fly versus me wanting to go fly. And then after I got done flying, I'd be like, whew, I'm glad I flew. I'm glad I got my money's worth. I'm glad that I got out there and did it. And it wasn't driven by like a desire to actually go do it. It was more of, I ought or I should do this because I've made this investment, and the conditions are right to go ahead and do it. So I would fly, and then there'd be times when like I wouldn't fly for like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, right? So there'd be these big gaps between my flying. And then that would always, I'd be thinking about, okay, is my gas fresh enough? How's my oil? Are all my O-rings, rubbery and not cracked? Are all my bolts good? I'd have to check everything over like every time before I go and fly. Like, is my motor gonna start? It started in the garage. I get to the field. Is it gonna start again? Okay, good. And just all of that continual mental energy that I had to put into maintenance was kind of draining on me and didn't give me confidence in the motor, right? It was, rather than like being like, oh, this is just a skateboard, I'm gonna take it here and go skateboard. Like, it's very simple. Everything's gonna work. Like, there's all these moving parts with the engine, and there's more than one time when I'd get to a field or something and the motor started at home, but it wouldn't start at the field or whatever, and I'd be like, oh crap, now I gotta go home, right? Like, I can think at least 2 or 3 times that happened to me, and I'm like, this is just frustrating, and I'm missing a beautiful night of flying, and now I gotta go back and play mechanic and try to get this stuff to work. So wasn't really, that didn't add to my love of the sport. I think I just want to say one more thing here about like learning how to paramotor. Maybe this played a role in me selling my equipment. I took lessons to learn how to paraglide, and for paramotoring I took a couple lessons, but then I kind of went off on my own. I didn't go through like a whole 3-week school with coffee and donuts and blah blah blah. If you ask me personally, if you have a general, I don't know, finesse or aptitude for wind sports, or maybe you come from a kiting or windsurfing background, or your parents are pilots, or you're a pilot or whatever, actual kiting of the wing, not difficult, all right, from my experience. And do I think that you could teach yourself the paramotor? In my personal opinion, yes, I think you could teach yourself how to paramotor. Do I think schools are a good idea too? Sure, of course. So like, you choose what you want to do. I'm just saying that I don't think it's super difficult. The most difficult thing for me was just like engine stuff and like learning that whole ball of wax. Like, that's where it helps to have a mentor or a teacher to show you how to do everything on that so that you're all set to go. So that's what I think, something that I missed out on. Well then, why do we have these schools, and why there are these big long lines to get into these schools? Well, sometimes I think that they're making a mountain out of a molehill a little bit. Like, you know, you go someplace and like they sit around, and I'm not talking about any school in particular, but like maybe you sit around, you shake hands, you introduce yourself, you talk about your dreams of flying, you know, you show pictures of your kids, you know, this is my will in case I die. I'm just kidding. But you know, you make it a whole process or a journey, right? You know, here we're learning how to kite the wing, parts of the wing, wind direction, wind theory, clouds, how to kite, backwards kiting, you know, reverse launching, forward launching, you know, flaring. You know, they like break everything down and they stretch it out and make it a big long process so that you feel confident and comfortable when you take your first flight, and so that your first flight is a positive experience, right? You know, maybe in reality you actually, like, the conditions were so good and your kite skills were fine that you could have flown on the first day, you know, but you're paying money for this, so we're going to kind of stretch it out and take our time and enjoy the whole process. We're going to have it be more about the experience than just getting you in the air. And I totally get that. I'm not dissing that. I'm just saying that that might be what's going on. And, you know, people that go to those things, they probably have a little more means, so they can afford that. And they're paying for that whole experience. So do I think getting training is a good idea? Yeah, of course. If you don't have money for that, can you self-learn? I actually think so. Sorry. So anyway, I think it would be helpful though to have like a mentor, like a friend or who's in the sport or with another community who can kind of give you tips and stuff along the way. I certainly had someone in that role. Thank you, Scott. You're a rock star, Top Gun. Last thing I want to say, my future, kind of where I'm going with this. Am I against paramotoring? No way. What I'd like to do in the future actually is if I ever bought some land, like 100 acres or something like that, or 50 acres or blah, blah, blah. I just like to have a big grassy area mowed out behind my house or something, or behind my machine shed or whatever, where I could have a little runway and I could, you know, buy either an electric paramotor or also, or one of those powered hang gliders with like the mosquito harness on the back. I think hang gliders can cover more distance, that you can go faster, and I have something that I always wanted to try. So I think that would definitely take care of the convenience thing. It would take care of me launching from illegal landing zones. If I got the electric motor, it might take care of like the whole engine maintenance, all that stuff. And I don't know, maybe I'd be less bored if I actually, found some friends to fly with, that flew with one of those Cenas, or, put music in or something like that. So anyway, I've kind of rambled there a little bit, but I hope that's helpful for you. And thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.